So let us now go to the manufacturing farms. So the last time we did something on the non-manufacturing farms. So now we go to the manufacturing farms. We go to the manufacturing farms. So we can write something brief concerning the manufacturing farms. We can now write something brief concerning the manufacturing farms. So for the manufacturing farms, we summarize that the operating cycle will take into account it will take into account raw materials conversion period in days. It will take into account the raw materials conversion period in days. The raw materials conversion period in days, comma, work in progress conversion period in days. Work in progress conversion period in days. The work in progress conversion period in days, comma, stock turnover in days. The stock turnover in days. The stock turnover in days, comma, debtors collection period in days. The debtors collection period in days. The debtors collection period in days, and the creditors payment period in days, and the creditors payment period in days. Therefore, in this case, comma, the cash conversion cycle will be expressed as follows. Therefore, in this case, the cash conversion cycle will be expressed as follows. So, cash conversion cycle . So now we want to get the cash conversion cycle or operating cycle. So cash conversion cycle or operating cycle will be given by the raw materials. Raw materials conversion period. Conversion period in days. Then we add the work in progress. Work in progress. Conversion period. Conversion period in days. Then we also add the stock turnover. The stock turnover in days. Then we also add debtors collection period in days. Debtors collection period in days. Then we minus the creditors payment period. We minus the creditors payment period. Minus the creditors payment period in days. The creditors payment period in days. So when it was non-manufacturing, there were only 3 items: stock turnover, debtors collection, and the creditors payment. But now there is the raw material conversion period in days, and also the work in progress conversion period in days. So that's now how we shall be able to come up with the cash conversion cycle. The cash conversion cycle. So we now factor in 2 items: raw material conversion period in days, and also the work in progress conversion period in days. So if you want to compute the raw materials conversion period, raw materials conversion period. Raw materials conversion period index. So it is supposed to be given by number of days in a year. Number of days in a year. We multiply by average stock. Average stock of the raw materials. Average stock of the raw materials. We divide by the purchases of the raw materials. Purchases of the raw materials. So when you want to compute raw material conversion period in days, you simply take number of days in a year multiplied by the average stock of the raw materials. We divide by purchases of the raw materials. So apart from that, also the work in progress. Work in progress. Work in progress conversion period. Conversion period. Work in progress conversion period in this. So it will also be given by number of days in a year. Number of days in a year multiplied by average stock of the work in progress. Average stock of the work in progress. Average stock of the work in progress. Then we divide by usage of the raw materials. Of the raw materials, or simply the cost of production. Cost of production. So that's now a summary of how to get the raw material conversion period in days, and also work in progress conversion period in days. So I'll give you a brief illustration, which is not in the past papers, so that we now check how to come up with the cash conversion cycle. So let us now have an illustration. We can now have an illustration. So in the illustration, we can summarize that the following information relates to M Limited. 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 Relates to M Limited. So we start with purchases of the raw materials. Start off with the purchases of purchases of the raw materials. Purchases of the raw materials. So it is 6,700. That's now for then. The next one will be usage of the raw materials. Usage of the raw materials. So usage for the raw materials, it is 6,500. The next one should be sale of the finished goods. 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 So sale of the finished goods, sale of the finished goods, it is meant to be 25,000. 5,000. The next one is supposed to be cost of sales. When it comes to the cost of sales, this one is 18,000. The cost of sales. The next one is supposed to be average creditors. Average creditors. So average creditors, it is 1,400. The next one is average stock of the raw materials. Average stock of the raw materials. Average stock of the raw materials. So for the average stock of the raw materials, it is meant to be 1,200. It's meant to be 1,200. The next one is meant to be average stock of the work in progress. So average stock for the work in progress. The next one is average stock of the finished goods. Average stock of goods. Average stock for the finished goods. So average stock for the finished goods will be 2,100. Then average, that is so average debtors is 4,700. So now required is that assume there are 365 days in a year. Assume there are 365 days in a year. Assume there are 365 days in a year. Determine the length of the cash conversion cycle. Determine the length of the cash conversion cycle. Determine the length of the cash conversion cycle. So we determine the length of the cash conversion conversion cycle. So from this information, let us now come up with the length of the cash conversion cycle. Let us now come up with the length of the cash conversion cycle. Let us now come up with the cash conversion cycle. So what we do, we shall be having the column for the ratio. Then apart from the ratio, now we shall be able to have the formula. Then we do the calculation. So we start with the first one as the raw material conversion period rates. The first one is the raw materials. Raw materials conversion period rates. Raw materials conversion. So it is supposed to be given by number of days in a year. Number of days in a year multiplied by average stock of the raw materials. Average stock of the raw materials. Then we divide by purchases of the raw materials. Purchases of the raw. So we assume there are 365 days. We assume there are 365 days in a year. So I gave you the average stock of the raw materials. So what we have as the average stock of the raw materials. So we divide by purchases of the raw materials. So you round it off into 2 decimal places. So the second one is supposed to be the work in progress. Conversion. So it will be number of days. Number of days. Multiplied by average stock. Average stock of the work in progress. Then we divide by usage of so usage of the raw materials 365 days in a year multiplied by what is the average stock of the work in progress? What did I give you as the usage of the raw materials? 65. So So the next one is meant to be the stock turnover. Stock turnover in this. So to get the stock turnover in this, it is supposed to be given by number of days multiplied by average stock of the finished goods. Average stock of the finished goods. Average stock of the finished goods. Then you divide by the cost of sales. Divide by the cost of sales. So that will be 365 days in a year, multiplied by average stock of the finished goods. So everyone has that. So what did I give you as the cost of sales? So we got to number 4. Is debtors. Debtors collection. So we start with the number of days in a year. Multiplied by average stock of the debtors. Average debtors. So we divide by the credit sales. So you also take 365 days. So what do we have as the average debtors? Then what do we have as the sales? 25. Then number 5 is supposed to be the creditors. So we divide by the credit purchases. So what is there as the average creditors? So we divide by the credit purchases. Credit purchases, they are the same figure that we have up there, which is 67. So get the first 4 you add, but this last one you subtract. So that is what will give you the cash conversion or operating cycle. So remember, each one of them, you round them off into 2 decimal places. So it has given you how many days? So there is a question now in your past papers. So check November 2016, question number 3, part B. You can now check November 2016, question number 3, part B. We can now check November 2016, question number 3, part B. November 2016. There is a question number 3, part B. So mine should be on page 59. When you go to page 59, there's a question number 3, part B. When you check on page 59, there is a question number 3, part B. When you check on page 59, there is a question number 3, part B. So that question 3, part B, they gave you details that the following information was extracted from the financial statements of a manufacturing company. So they gave you average total debtors outstanding. Average total debtors outstanding. So average debtors, you can see where we are using them. When we are computing the debtors collection period in days, we use average debtors at that point. So that figure that you are given as 48,000, we shall use it at that point. Then they have also given you raw materials consumption. So raw material consumption will now be the same as the purchases of the raw materials for this question. We shall be using it as the purchases for the raw materials. So we assume that everything that was consumed is what had been purchased, because the information given does not give us a clear guideline for that. Then total production cost. So total production cost, you will use it in the work in progress conversion period in days. The formula I gave you, I said that when you want to calculate the work in progress conversion period in days, it is supposed to be given by number of days in a year multiplied by the average work in progress. Then you are supposed to divide by the usage of the raw material or the total production cost. That formula is what I started when I was giving you this one. Then, so that part of the total production cost, you will be able to use it here as the usage or the production cost. Then the question has also given you sales for the year. So sales for the year, we shall use them at this point. Let us collect, so use the sales for the year at that level. Then they also gave you the total cost of sales. So total cost of sales, you apply it at this point, the cost of sales. You use it at that portion. Then value of the average stock maintained. Value of the average stock maintained. One of them is the raw materials. One of them is the raw materials. So you can see raw materials, the average stock for the raw materials, we use it up there. They have also given you work in progress. Average work in progress, we use it there. They were also able to give you average stock for the finished goods. So finished goods, there are this figure that you should be applying. Then they have also given you number of days in a year. So this one they have said 365. Then you can see the last part, average period of credit allowed to the suppliers. Average period of credit allowed to the suppliers. They have given us how many days? 16 days. So that is the same as creditors payment period in days. Suppliers are our creditors. Suppliers are our creditors. So this time around in the question, this one has been given. This one has been given. They gave you 16 days. So I will still have the same arrangement. So I simply do the work calculation based on what I have. Because required, they wanted you to the operating cycle in days. That would be the same as our cash conversion cycle or operating cycle in days. So to answer that, you start by calculating the raw material conversion period in days, which will be given by number of days in a year multiplied by the average stock of the raw material divided by the purchases for the raw materials. So number of days in a year are still the same. So average stock of the raw materials is 32,000. This one is 32,000 like that. Then we divide by purchases of the raw materials. So I said raw material consumption will work for us as the purchases for the raw materials. So it is 440. The figure is 440. So that should be able to give you the information to do with what is supposed to be work in progress conversion period days. So we come to the work in progress. So average stock for the work in progress. They gave us 35,000. So this one, we change it to 35,000. So usage of the raw materials, when you check the formula I did, it's the same as the cost of production. Usage of the raw materials, I say is the same as the cost of the total production cost. So the question had given you 1 million. The question has given you 1 million. Then stock turnover in days. When it comes to the stock turnover in days, it is simply number of days in a year, average stock for the finished goods. So finished goods, this one is 26,000. So this one is meant to be 26,000. We divide by the cost of sales. So total cost of sales is given as 10, 15. We come up with that. Then debtors collection period in days, number of days in a year, average debtors. So average total debtors, you see at the start of the question, they gave you 48,000. When you check up there, they have given you average total debtors outstanding. So this one, the question has given you 48,000. Then sales, we assume all of them are on credit. So total sales, how much are we given up there, down there as the sales for the year? You can see 1.6 million. Yeah. So that is now what we should be able to have for that particular portion. Then now when it comes now to this one, they gave you the days. This one, it had been given. They gave you as 16 days. So this one, they gave you 16 days. So we simplify it in that portion, then come up with you add the first 4, then you subtract the last one. So the first 4 we add, but the last one we subtract. So the 16 days were given, the credit period allowed to the suppliers. So That one was given. We get around how many this. The first four you add, then you subtract the last one. 43.32. So others, are you getting the same? Are we getting the same figure? About 43.32. So that should now be able to conclude that element of the cycle, but we shall be discussing a topic of the working capital separately. That's when now we shall go back and answer the Roman letter 2. Roman letter 2, they wanted you to come up with amount for the working capital required. Remember, working capital is simply the current assets minus the current liabilities. That is a topic on its own. We shall see how to go about and compute the values. So now I want us to start a new topic. now start a new topic as concept of time value of money. We now start a new topic as concept of time value of money. Concept of the time value of money. So why do we require money in any given circumstance? That's now what we shall be coming up with. So we shall be converting the present to the future or the future to the present. That's now the element of the concept. So under the concept of the time value for money, we write that the concept explains why individuals prefer. The concept explains why individuals prefer to receive cash today. It explains why individuals prefer to receive cash today, rather than receiving the same amount of money in the future. It explains why individuals prefer to receive cash today rather than receiving the same amount of money in the future. So it explains why individuals prefer to receive cash today rather than receiving the same amount of money in the future. Then we continue by writing that due to the passage of time, comma, the value of money will change. The value of money will change. And the purchasing power of money will decline. Due to inflation. And the purchasing power of money will decline due to inflation. Then another paragraph, we note that individuals prefer current cash. Individuals prefer the current cash rather than the future cash. Individuals prefer the current cash rather than the future cash. Due to the following reasons. Individuals prefer the current cash rather than the future cash due to the following reasons. Number one would be that because of the availability of the investment opportunities. Because of the availability of the investment opportunities. I.e., the money available today can be invested. To generate extra income in the future. The money available today can be invested to generate extra income in the future. Number two is that in order to take advantage of the cash discount being offered by the supplier. In order to take advantage of the cash discount being offered by the supplier. Then number three is that because of the individual's subjective preference for money. I.e., individuals prefer to receive cash today, i.e., individuals prefer to receive cash today. Individuals prefer to receive cash today. Because of their own individual subjective reasons. 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 So that's now what we mean by the subjective preference for money. All of you have reasons why you require money today. So if I ask you today, why do you require cash today? Is there any need for having cash today? That's now the subjective preference for money. Or if I can say, if each one of you is given 1 million today, what are you going to do with that money? Some of you tell me the first job is in Mombasa. Then some of you will not attend the class up to the end. So those are different subjective preference for money. All of us have different reasons why we require money. They normally ask you some short notes to write about those concepts. So like now, if you can refer to one of the questions, there is a question for November 2018. November 2018, question 1, part B. November 2018, question number 1, part B. So go to page 40. When you go to page 40, there is a question number 1, part B. There is a question number 1, part B, Roman letter 2. Question 1, part B, Roman letter 2. So the Roman letter 2, they have talked about to differentiate between the following terms as applied in finance. Roman letter 3, time value of money and time preference for money. Time value for money and time preference for money. So time value of money explains the reason why we require cash today rather than the same cash in the future. That's now the concept of the time value for money. We need money today. The value of 1 shilling today is higher than the value of 1,000 tomorrow. Because I don't know about tomorrow. Yeah, if someone promises you 10 shillings today, another person promises you 500 shillings tomorrow, what do? Take the 10 shillings today. You don't know about tomorrow. Yeah. So that element of being uncertain about the future. The value of today is higher than tomorrow because it is already there. That's what we mean by the concept of the time value of money. The value of a shilling today is higher than the value of the same shilling tomorrow because of the element of inflation. That's what we mean by the time value of money. But when it comes to the time preference for money, time preference for money is simply we are saying that we require money for different reasons. All of us, we require money for different subjective reasons. So that's now what they mean by the time preference for money. Preference is different reasons why people require money. So that is now how you could have been able to explain that from letter 3, time value for money and time preference for money. So another paragraph, we can now write that a continuation, we can write that the concept of the time value of money is analyzed as follows. The concept of the time value of money is analyzed as follows. The concept of the time value of money is analyzed as follows. The concept of the time value of money is analyzed as follows. So the concept of the time value of money is analyzed as follows. is analyzed as follows. So we start off with A. So A will be the future value of single amount. The future value of single amount. Look at the future value of single amount. Future value of the single amount. So under that, we can write that compounding is the process of determining the future value. Compounding is the process of determining the future value, is the process of determining the future value of a given amount, is the process of determining the future value of a given amount, is the process of determining the future value of a given amount. Therefore, the future value will involve incorporating interest on the principal amount invested. Therefore, the future value will involve incorporating the interest on the principal amount invested. Therefore, the future value will involve incorporating interest on the principal amount invested. So we can now have an illustration on that to see how to compute the future value for the single amount. So in an illustration, we can summarize that. Consider an investor who has invested 100,000 shillings in the bank. Consider an investor who has invested 100,000 shillings in the bank, earning interest at a rate of 10% per annum. Earning interest at a rate of 10% per annum. Determine the future value of this amount. At the end of the third year. Determine the future value of this amount at the end of the third year. Determine the future value of this amount at the end of the third year. So what we do, we shall be having the period. Then apart from the period, we shall have amount at the start. Then apart from amount at the start, then interest per annum. 10%. Interest at 10% per annum. Interest, then so that we get amount at the end. Like that. So we start off with period 1. Amount at the start of period 1, it is meant to be 100,000. It's meant to be 100,000. So interest is 10%. So 10% of 100,000. 10% of the 100,000 should give you 10,000. So 10,000 plus 100,000 will give us 110. So when you earn interest at the end of the year 1, your total value is 110. So we go back to year 2. Year 2, at the start of year 2, you have it as 110,000. So you also get 10% of 110,000. You also get 10% of 110,000. So what is 10% of 110,000? So that's why 11,000. So when you add 11,000 on 110, Nakuja 121. 121 like that. So you go to the start of year 3. So 121, 10% of 121. It is 12,000. So when you add on the principal amount at the start, you give us which value? 123. So this is now your future value. That's now our future value. Then this one was the present value. That one was the present value. So after 3 years, that is the figure will be happy. But this process is a very long process if you go that way, assuming there are 15 years. So it will take a lot of time. So we need now to use a formula to get the same. So we can now add there a paragraph by noting that using the formula, we can add there a paragraph that using the formula, comma, the future value will be expressed as follows. Using the formula, comma, the future value will be expressed as follows. So now to compute the future value, it is present value 1 plus r raised to the power of n. When you want to get the future value, it is simply the present value in the brackets of 1 plus r raised to the power of n. So our present value is 100,000. R is the interest rate, which is 10%, which is the same as 0.1. So N is 3. N is meant to be 3, so that you come up with what is supposed to be the future value of that amount. So you confirm and check whether you will get the same amount. Yeah, so you will be using this formula instead of that process. That process may be too long, so we apply that formula to get the future value. So that was now meant to be A, the future value for the single amount. So we go to B. So B is supposed to be the future value of the annuity. The future value of the annuity. So we want now to see how to compute the future value of the annuity. So we shall first explain what we mean by the annuity. Then after that, now we check how to convert. So when it comes to annuity, we shall discover that it is the same amount received every year for a given period of time. Like now, when you receive a salary, probably it is the same every month for the whole year. So any amount which is the same for a given period of time, we refer to it as annuity. Rent, if it is fixed, the same amount every month for maybe say 2 years, that one is an annuity. So an annuity is simply the same amount paid or received for a given period of time. So we shall see how it works for computing. So first we can write that annuity is the equal amount received or paid. Annuity is the equal amount received or paid each period is the equal amount received or paid each period, received or paid each period for a given time, for a given time, e.g. salary, e.g. the salary, comma, insurance premiums, comma, retirement benefits, comma, rent, etc. Retirement benefits, comma, rent, etc. And we continue by writing that annuity is classified into two categories. Annuity is classified into two categories. Number one will be ordinary annuity. So under the ordinary annuity, we summarize that it is where cash flows will occur at the end of each period. It is where cash flows will occur at the end of each period. It is where cash flows will occur at the end of each period. It is where the cash flows will occur at the end of each period. Cash flows will occur at the end of each period, e.g. salary, comma, retirement benefits, comma, rent, etc. So that is now number one, the ordinary annuity. Then number two will be annuity due. So for the annuity due, we say that it is where the cash flows will occur. At the beginning of each period. It is where cash flows will occur at the beginning of each period. E.g. the insurance premium, comma, rent. Insurance premiums or rent. So that's now the explanation of the two annuities. Ordinary, it occur at the end, but annuity due, it occur at the beginning. So rent is normally paid at the start of the period, but salary must be paid at the end of the period. There are reasons why they do that, for the protection of the employer and also for the landlord. Because now someone can be paid at the start, then you work for 2 days, then maybe you get a job or you go away. Then for the landlord, you may stay up to the end of the month, then you go away without pay. So there are reasons for that, but we classify them into two. Ordinary annuity, it occur at the end, but annuity due, it occur at the beginning. So I will give you a brief illustration on that. So in an illustration, we can summarize that. Consider an individual illustration. Consider an individual who expects to receive shillings 100,000. Consider an individual who expects to receive shillings, not one, but 10,000, who expects to receive shillings 10,000 at the end of each year. At the end of each year for the next 3 years. At the end of each year for the next 3 years. At the end of each year for the next 3 years. If the prevailing interest rate is 10%, if the prevailing interest rate is 10%, comma, determine the future value of this amount. If the prevailing interest rate is 10%, determine the future value of this amount. Determine the future value of this amount. Determine the future value of this amount. So let us now see how we shall get that future value. So it occurs at the end. So you want to know how to compute that. So what I will do, so what I'm going to do, I will be having the year. Then you remember present value. And the future value. So you have already seen this formula. If you want to get the future value, you simply take the present value in the brackets of 1 plus r raised to the power of n. So this person is receiving 10,000 at the end of each year. So after 3 years, we'll be having how much? We want to get that total. So we start off with the year 1. So he has received 10,000 at the start of the year. So 1 plus r. R is the interest rate. So this one, I gave you an interest rate of 10%, which is the same as 0.1. So if you receive 10,000 at the start of year 1, but you are supposed to be there for 3 years. So you reinvest for how many remaining years? We are looking at the future value. You earn interest for how many remaining years? So for this one, N will be 2. So you are supposed to be there for 3 years, but you have received money at the end of year 1. So we are looking for the future value. We reinvest it for how many remaining years? So for this one, N will be 2. Get the value for that, because you have received money at the end of year 1, but it's supposed to be there for 3 years. So you reinvest for how many remaining years, because we are looking for the future value. Then another year 2, you receive another 10,000, because you are receiving every year 10,000. So we want to know the future value. So when you receive at the end of the year 2, you reinvest it for the remaining 1 year to go to year 3. You do the same for year 3, where you also take 10,000, then 1 plus 0.1, but N will be 0, because we have received the money at the end of year 3. So the time you reinvest will be 0. So get those totals, then you add them together and see what should be the future value of that particular annuity. So that we come up with the future value of that annuity. So that's now when we use that format, but we need to apply the formula. We need to apply now the formula. So it has given us which figure? That's 3,100. Then another paragraph, we summarize that. Using the formula, comma, the future value of the annuity, will be expressed as follows. The future value for the annuity will be expressed as follows. So future value for the annuity, you simply take the annuity, then in the brackets of 1 plus r raised to the power of n minus 1, then divide by that. So when you want to get the future value for the annuity, this is the future value for the annuity. So simply take that annuity in the brackets of 1 plus r raised to the power of n. Then we minus 1 divided by r. So our annuity there Our annuity there is the 10,000. Then 1 plus 0.1. N is 3 years minus 1. Also divide by 0.1. So simply confirm and see whether you get the same figure. So that will be the formula we will now be applying. So that is now the formula that you will be able to apply. So it will give you the same figure. Yeah, so now instead of using that part, tutakuwa tunatumia hii formula. Get the future value of the annuity which occur at the end of the year. So if you want to get the future value for the annuity which occur at the end of the year, we should be computing it from that portion. So you can either apply this part, but this one, assuming there are 10 period or 20, so it will take you a lot of time. So it is now easier for you to apply this portion of the formula. So that is now when they occur at the end. That is ordinary annuity. I want us now to check, assuming the cash flows occurred at the beginning of the year, what will happen for that. So we can now add there another paragraph. We can now add there another paragraph by noting that assume that the investor in the example above, assume that the investor in the example above, assume that the investor in the example above was to receive the 10,000 shillings. Assume that the investor in the example above was to receive the 10,000 shillings, at the beginning of each year, was to receive the 10,000 shillings at the beginning of each year. At the beginning of each year, determine the future value. Determine the future value of this annuity due. So assuming that the investor in the example above was to receive the 10,000 at the beginning of each year, determine the future value of this annuity. So when we determine the future value of that annuity, we follow the two items. So I still use this one. So now, if I use this one, you see, when I receive the money at the start of year one, I reinvest it for how many remaining years? 3 years. Now you will change this N for year 1 to be 3. E equal to then E equal to 1. Then that's the value. So that's when I apply that. But if I'm using this one, I will multiply again this one by 1 plus 1 like that. Then when it comes to here, we also multiply 0.1. So it will give you now the same figures and this portion. So I want you now to try this one and see what you get. So that's when you follow format. But when you use the formula you add there, you multiply 1 plus r. Then see, confirm whether you will be getting the same figures. Those two methods. Because now the cash flows occur at the beginning of each year. So both of them should give you the same figure. The two methods should give you the same figure. When cash flows occur at the beginning, when you receive it at the start of year one, you reinvest it for the remaining 3 years because year one is already included. But when it now comes here, the formula is you multiply by 1 plus R, then you confirm the same information that we had and check whether it should be able to give you the same value. Are we getting the same? So when the cash flows occur at the beginning, that's how we approach it. But when it occur at the end, you use the other format that we had. So that was now meant to be the future value for the annuity. So we got to see as the present value of the single amount, the present value of the single amount, the present value of the single amount. So when now we can write something brief by noting that discounting is the process of determining. Discounting is the process of determining. The present value. Is the process of determining the present value. The present value of a given future amount is the process of determining the present value of a given future amount. So I will give you a brief illustration to see how to compute the price. So we are now reversing. You are doing the future value. Now you want to get the present value. We like now, like the A. We had checked the future value for the single amount. Now we want to get the present value for this one, but all of them will come from each other. You see this one, to get the future value is the present value. So now we want to make the present value to be the subject and see how we should be getting the value from there. So I will give you an illustration, then I demonstrate from there. So in an illustration, we can write that assume you expect to receive shillings 50,000 4 years from now. Assume you expect to receive shillings 50,000 4 years from now. Assume you expect to receive shillings 50,000 4 years from now. 4 years from now. Then we continue by writing that if the prevailing interest rate is 12%, if the prevailing interest rate is 12%, if the prevailing interest rate is 12%, determine the present value of this amount. Determine the present value of this amount. Determine the present value of this amount. So I will first use the formula, then I will also use the table to see how it works. So we can now have a paragraph that using the formula, we can write there that using the formula, comma, the present value of the single amount is expressed as follows. Using the formula, comma, the present value of the single amount is expressed as follows. Using the formula, the present value of the single amount is expressed as follows. So I want to make this one to be the subject. So if I make that to be the subject, to get the present value, you simply take this future value divided by this, because when you multiply this by this is when you put this. So now if I want to get this, I simply take this one divided by this figure in brackets. So it will be equal to the future value divided by 1 plus r raised to the power of n. But most of the time, we don't want to have a denominator. So if I remove a denominator, this will be the same as the future value, then 1 plus r raised to the power of negative. So finally, this is what we should be applying instead of having with a denominator. So we are simply making this present value to be the subject. So I simply take the future value right by that. But now we don't want to have a denominator in our equation. So it will just be the future. Then when you change a denominator to be a numerator, the power changes to be a negative. So that's now what we have. So from the question I've given you, what is the future value that I've given you after 4 years? So you take the 50,000, interest rate is what percent? 12% is the same as 0.12 raised to the power of negative n. So n I've given you how many years? And I've given you 4 years. So what I want you to do, nataka kwanza mpate hiyo figure for bracket, round it off to 4 decimal places. Get this figure in bracket, round it off into 4 decimal places so that you give me the figure after rounding it off to 4 decimal places. .63. Yeah, so then now get the value for that. So you add there a paragraph that using the table, the present value tables, using the present value table, using the present value table, comma, using the present value table, comma, the present value of the future cash flows will be expressed as follows. The present value of the future cash flows will be expressed as follows. The present value of the future cash flows will be expressed as follows. So when you want to compute the present value, simply take the future value multiplied by present value interest factor R%. So to get now the present value, simply take the future value multiplied by present value interest factor. This is present value interest factor. So R is now the interest rate. N is the period. So you simply take the future value multiplied by the present value interest factor at R% in period N. So our future value, we have seen it is 50,000. Sorry. So this now will be the same as the future value multiplied by the present value. So R is the 12%, and N is 4 years. N is our period, which is 4 years. So our future value is 50,000. So in your past papers, there are tables. In your past papers, there are some tables. In your past papers, there are some tables at the back of your past papers. At the back of your past papers, all of those tables. So ile ya mwisho kabisa huko nyuma, hiyo ndio for the single period table. So go to the back of your past papers. There is a single period table. So check up where there is 12%. Check up where there is 12%. Move downwards to period 4. Move downwards to period 4 and get the figure that you have in that table. Naona hiyo figure iko kwa hiyo table. Nakuja ngapi? 0.63. It is the same figure that we calculated. It is the same figure that so the tables, they are normally rounded off into 4 decimal places. That's why I asked you the other one also to round it off into 4. So you can still use the table or you can calculate. If you want to calculate, I've shown you this part. But if you are to use the table, you just go to the table, that particular table directly, the percentage up, then move downwards to each period. And now you will apply the table like that. So going forward, we should be using the table, unless the figure is not in the table. So you should know how to check the table. So this table I've given is for the single amount. There are 2 of them. The other one is for the annuity. This one is for the single amount. The other table will be for the annuity. So we should be able to also analyze the one for the annuity. So online, I hope, are you able to see that figure from the table? Those who are online, are you able to get the figure from the table? Yeah, so we shall be using the tables going forward on how to analyze those figures. We shall be using the table going forward on how to use those figures. So I will give you another illustration. I will also give you another illustration. Also give you another illustration. I will also give you another illustration. So another illustration, we can summarize that. Consider a 4-year project. Consider a 4-year project which is expected to generate the following cash flows. So consider a 4-year project which is expected to generate the following cash flows. Consider a 4-year project which is expected to generate the following cash flows. So consider a 4-year project which is expected to generate the following cash flows. So we shall be having the year, also the cash flows. So year 1, we have 120,000. Year 2, we have 80,000. Year 3, we have 70,000. Year 4, we have 60,000. Year 4, we have 60,000. Then another paragraph is that if the discounting rate is 16%, if the discounting rate is 16%, if the discounting rate is 16%, compute the present value of these cash flows. If the discounting rate is 16%, compute the present value of these cash flows. Compute the present value of these cash flows. Compute the present value of these cash flows. So now we use the table because I've told you how we can apply the table. So what we can do now, we create this schedule, the year, then cash flows, and present value interest factor 16% for each period, so that we get the present value. So we just get the schedule, the year, cash flows, present value interest factor 16% each period, then present value. So there is year 1, 2, 3, and 4. So year 1, it is 120,000. Year 2, it is 80,000. Year 3, it is 70,000. Year 4, it is 60,000. So I want you to go to the table that we have just shown you at the back of your past papers. At the back of your past papers, now we have that table. We have that particular table. We have that particular table. So go at the back of your past papers. Is where we have that present value table. So you check up there. Are you able to see 16% somewhere, June? Yeah. So to move downwards under that column, year 1. Year 1, it is 0.8621. 0.861. So you multiply this figure by this figure to get the value for that. Then you go to year 2. Year 2 is 0.74, 0.743. So year 4, year 3, it is 0.64. The next one is meant to be 0.55. 0.55. It's 2, 3. So multiply this by that. Then you get that total. That's better from the table. Unaanza mbili, the other 2. There are 2. Tunaweza the single. So that should now be in relation to that. So that was C. So we need to go to D, but we cannot have it now. So when we meet in the afternoon, there to call afternoon class. Yeah, so when we meet in the afternoon, we shall go to D as the present value. The present value of the annuity. The present value of annuity. So what we have done is C. So when we meet, we shall go to D. So we can stop there for now because it is time. When we meet at 2, we have another class from 2. So we shall proceed from there. So for now, we can stop there.